Chosen. 1. Something has already shifted and you felt it before you understood it. A quiet disruption in your spirit, like heaven just pulled back a veil you didn't know was there. This is not just another moment in your day. This is a divine interruption. Anointed One. You were summoned into this exact second because your identity has reached a point where it can no longer stay hidden. What has been buried in your bloodline, what has been forming in silence, is now pressing to the surface. You've sensed it, haven't you? The unfamiliar weight, the unexplainable authority, the feeling that your life has been preparing for something far greater than what you've seen so far. Scripture says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 that there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and your time of revelation has just begun. Chosen One. This is not about ego, and it is not about imagination. This is about alignment. Heaven is confirming what your spirit has been trying to tell you. The delays, the confusion, even the battles, they were never random. They were preparation for identity. And if this message found you, it means you are ready to hear what others are not. Because what is about to be revealed next will not just explain who you are. It will redefine everything you thought you were. Chosen One. Before the revelation becomes clear, something inside you has to be named correctly, because what you have been calling confusion was never confusion at all. It was pressure from a truth that had outgrown your old self. That is why the last season has felt so unusual. You have tried to explain it in practical ways. You told yourself you were just tired, just emotional, just under stress, just overthinking. But deep within, you knew that explanation was too small for what you were carrying. There has been a holy tension around your life, and the reason it feels so intense is because your spirit has been brushing against an identity your mind has not fully accepted yet. Anointed One. There are moments when heaven does not introduce you to something new, but confronts you with what has always been there. This is one of those moments. The weight you have felt in quiet places, the way your thoughts deepen when everyone else is casual, the strange burden you carry for things that do not seem to belong to your ordinary life. These are not random traits. They are signals. You have been living with evidence of a deeper calling, but because it did not fit into the categories people handed you, you kept trying to reduce it. You tried to make yourself easier to explain. You tried to make your hunger look normal. You tried to make your sensitivity look accidental. But the truth kept rising. And I know how this feels because there are seasons when your own life starts speaking a language you do not yet know how to interpret. You walk into a room and something changes, yet nobody can quite describe what shifted. You feel a warning before others see the danger. You sense grief before anyone speaks bad news. You carry discernment that makes small talk exhausting, and there are days when you look at your own life and wonder why you cannot simply move through the world as lightly as everyone else seems to. This is where many set-apart people begin to question themselves. They do not doubt because nothing is happening. They doubt because too much is happening beneath the surface. That is where the lie often enters. The enemy does not always begin with open opposition. Sometimes he whispers interpretation. He takes your burden and tells you it is imbalance. He takes your discernment and tells you it is pride. He takes your spiritual sensitivity and tells you it is instability. He takes the authority rising in you and tries to rename it as ego before it ever becomes obedience. That is how many chosen ones stay delayed. Not because they lack calling, but because they accepted a false definition of what was unfolding inside them. Hear this clearly, not everything heavy is harmful. Some things are heavy because they are holy. There is a difference between oppression and impartation, and many of you have been misreading the two. Oppression crushes without purpose. Impartation stretches with purpose. Oppression leaves you empty. Impartation leaves you trembling but marked. Oppression drives you away from God. Impartation drives you to seek Him more deeply because something inside you knows you are standing near a threshold. That is why you could not fully return to the smaller version of yourself after certain recent moments. A conversation shifted you. A prayer unsettled you. A quiet night exposed something. You may not have had the words for it then, but your spirit recognized it. Something eternal brushed against your life. Scripture gives language for this. In 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 6, Paul speaks of a gift that must be stirred into flame. Notice that he does not describe it as something Timothy must invent. He speaks of something already present, something received, something waiting for agreement. Chosen one, that is where you are standing now. You are not at the beginning of a false fantasy. You are standing in the middle of an awakening. This is not about pretending to be significant. This is about finally recognizing that heaven has been forming you in ways your natural eyes could not measure. And because of that, you must stop using ordinary standards to judge what is happening in your life. People around you may only recognize visible success, open doors, public affirmation, money applause, and immediate results. But spiritual identity often forms in hidden places first. It forms when you are misunderstood. It forms when you are set apart and do not yet know why. It forms when you carry compassion that feels too deep, conviction that feels too sharp, and responsibility that feels too large for your present circumstances. You have wondered why you feel responsible for more than your own survival, why certain people's pain affects you so deeply, why truth matters to you with such intensity, why compromise leaves your spirit restless. These are not personality quirks, these are clues. So let this settle into you now. The pressure has not come because you are breaking down. It has come because something true is pressing upward. The old version of you cannot contain what is emerging, and that is why the inner conflict has become impossible to ignore. You are not being punished by the weight. You are being introduced by it. What you have felt is not the collapse of identity. It is the unveiling of it. And before I tell you what this awakening has been preparing you to carry, you need to understand why your path has been marked by such unusual resistance, because that resistance has been speaking more clearly about your identity than you realize. Anointed. 1. The resistance around your life was never random, and the sooner you stop calling it random, the sooner you will stop misreading your story. There are people who move through life with little spiritual interference, because little is being demanded from them. Then there are those whose very existence disrupts darkness before they even understand their own assignment. That is where many chosen ones become confused, because they interpret unusual pressure as proof that something is wrong with them, when in reality the pressure is often proof that something powerful has already been placed within them. You have looked at the battles, the delays, the emotional exhaustion, the misunderstandings, the strange cycles of opposition, and you have sometimes wondered whether you were failing. But a different question needs to be asked now. What if the warfare was not exposing your weakness, but reacting to your weight? What if the enemy recognized your spiritual capacity long before you were willing to? What if the very intensity of the conflict was a signal that your life carries consequences far beyond your current level of understanding? This is why some seasons of your life have felt heavier than they should have felt on paper. Outwardly, other people may have looked at your situation and assumed you were facing ordinary problems, but inwardly, you knew something deeper was happening. There were battles that did not match the visible circumstances. There were emotional attacks that arrived without warning. There were moments when you felt opposition rise the very instant you tried to move closer to clarity, obedience, or peace. That pattern matters. Darkness does not waste energy where there is no threat. The enemy studies consequence, not appearance. He does not respond most aggressively to who looks important. He responds to who carries the ability to interrupt patterns, expose deception, and open doors for others. That is why your life has often felt like more was pressing against you than the moment itself could explain. I want to ground this in something real because many people listening know exactly what this feels like in daily life. You decide to pray more seriously and suddenly everything around you becomes noisy. You begin to seek God about your purpose and confusion intensifies. You make one courageous decision to step out of an old cycle and then fear rushes in like a flood. You try to rest, but your mind becomes unusually restless. You attempt to move forward, but old voices grow louder. This is not always because you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is because you are finally moving in a direction that threatens what has benefited from your delay. That is why you cannot judge your identity by how much resistance you face. In many cases, the resistance is confirmation that you are nearing something the enemy has tried to keep hidden from you. Consider David before the throne ever became visible. Before the crown, there was the field. Before public victory, there were private battles. The lion and the bear were not interruptions to his future. They were preparation for it. They taught him what could not be learned in comfort. They forged reflexes of trust, authority, and courage in secret places where there was no applause. Chosen one. Your hidden battles have been doing the same in you. The things nobody clapped for the prayers, nobody heard the tears you wiped away before entering a room, the private obedience that brought no public reward, none of it was wasted. Those moments were not empty suffering, they were training, they were building a spiritual memory inside you so that when the larger confrontation came, you would not be meeting it as a beginner. You would be drawing from a history with God that had already proven His strength in your life. This is why some of you must stop despising the wilderness season. You wanted explanation, but God was building endurance. You wanted immediate visibility, but God was deepening roots. You wanted the burden to lift, but God was teaching your spirit how to stand under something weightier without collapsing. The wilderness is uncomfortable because it strips away illusion. It shows you what is still fragile. It shows you where your dependence really is. It teaches you how to hear clearly when comfort is removed. It exposes where you have been leaning on human approval, predictable outcomes, or visible reassurance. And once those things are shaken, something stronger begins to emerge. That is one reason your life could not remain shallow. Too much was assigned to you. What many people call burden, heaven often calls evidence. Moses carried weight. Elijah carried weight. Jeremiah carried weight. None of them were handed light assignments with casual consequences. Mantles are not decorative, they are weight-bearing. They come with responsibility, tension, and often deep loneliness. But they also come with corresponding strength. God never places true calling upon a life without also weaving in the capacity required to carry it. The problem is that many chosen ones feel the weight before they trust the strength. They become aware of the burden before they recognize the grace. So they spend years praying for the assignment to become smaller when heaven is trying to show them that the answer is not a smaller calling, but a larger capacity. That is where your understanding must shift now. Breakthrough is not always the removal of pressure. Sometimes breakthrough is the realization that you have been strengthened enough to carry what once terrified you. Sometimes breakthrough is not the disappearance of opposition, but the emergence of authority. Sometimes it is not the opening of an easier road, but the awakening of a stronger self. You have spent too much time assuming that relief is the only evidence that God is moving. But relief is not the only language of heaven. Formation is another language. Refining is another language. Enlargement is another language. There are moments when God answers your prayers not by taking away the mountain, but by revealing that your spirit has grown in ways that can now face it differently. So hear this with clarity. The battles did not come to announce your defeat. They came to expose your development. The warfare did not prove your insignificance. It revealed your consequence. The pressure did not mean you were abandoned. It meant heaven trusted what had already been deposited inside you more than you did. And once that truth settles into your spirit, you stop asking why your life has felt so weighty, and you begin asking what this weight has been preparing you to carry. That question changes everything, because the moment you stop begging to be reduced and start agreeing to be expanded, the old identity begins to lose its grip. And once that old identity begins to loosen, you are finally able to stand at the threshold without shrinking from what is being revealed. Chosen one, now that your perspective is beginning to shift, there is something deeper you must face, because awareness alone is not enough if your identity is still anchored in the past. There is a reason you have felt like you are standing between two versions of yourself, one familiar and one unfamiliar, one comfortable and one confronting. You have not been imagining that tension. It is real and it is necessary. You are standing at a threshold where your old identity is no longer strong enough to define you, but your new identity has not yet been fully embraced. That space feels unstable because it is not meant to be permanent. It is a crossing point. This is why things that once felt normal now feel restrictive. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Environments that once felt safe now feel limiting. You have tried to return to the old patterns just to feel grounded again, but something in you refuses to settle. That resistance inside you is not rebellion. It is recognition. Your spirit has already moved ahead of your habits. Your identity has already expanded beyond your comfort zone. And every time you try to shrink back into what you used to be, it feels unnatural because you are attempting to live below what has already been activated within you. Anointed One, there is a quiet but powerful truth that must settle in you now. The familiar version of you cannot carry what is coming. That is why it feels like parts of your life are being stripped away, not all at once, but deliberately. Certain relationships no longer fit. Certain mindsets no longer hold. Certain fears that once controlled you are being exposed for what they are. It may feel uncomfortable, even disorienting, but it is not loss without purpose. It is alignment. God is not taking from you to leave you empty. He is removing what cannot sustain what you're about to carry. You may have noticed how your tolerance has changed. Things you once excused now disturb your spirit. Places you once lingered now feel draining. Even your own thoughts have become more intense, more focused, more aware. This is not instability. This is sharpening. Your internal world is being recalibrated to match your assignment. That is why you feel like you are thinking differently, seeing differently, responding differently. You are not losing yourself. You are outgrowing a version of yourself that was never meant to be permanent. There is also something else happening beneath the surface that many people misunderstand. You have felt moments of isolation, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Times when you felt like no one fully understood what you were carrying. Times when you withdrew not out of weakness, but because you could not find language for what you were experiencing. That isolation was not abandonment. It was positioning. When God prepares someone for a deeper level of identity, he often separates them from the noise that would distort it. Not to punish them, but to protect the clarity of what is forming. This is why your journey has not looked like everyone else's. You have tried to compare timelines, compare progress, compare outcomes, but comparison has only increased your confusion. That is because your path was never meant to be measured by someone else's pace. Your formation has been specific. Your process has been intentional. Your delays were not delays in heaven's perspective. They were construction phases that required precision. If certain things had come earlier, you would not have been able to carry them without losing yourself in them. Scripture reflects this pattern again and again. In Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1, it says, "To arise and shine, for your light has come." But notice that the command to arise comes before the visible change is fully established. There is always a moment when identity must be accepted before manifestation becomes visible. You cannot step into what you refuse to recognize. You cannot carry what you keep questioning, and you cannot walk in authority while still apologizing for it internally. That is where many chosen ones remain stuck longer than necessary, not because they lack calling, but because they are waiting to feel ready before they accept what has already been given. But readiness in the Spirit does not always feel like confidence at first. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like stretching. Sometimes it feels like being exposed in ways that challenge your comfort. But readiness is not about comfort. It is about alignment. There are moments when you have felt a surge of clarity, a sudden boldness, a sense that you could speak or move with authority beyond your usual patterns. And then, just as quickly, doubt followed. You questioned it. You pulled back. You wondered if you were overreaching. That pattern must break now, because what you called overreaching was often the first glimpse of your real capacity. And every time you silenced it, you reinforced the old identity instead of stepping into the new one. So, hear this carefully. You are not waiting to become something. You are learning to agree with what has already been placed inside you. That agreement is the turning point. That is where identity shifts from potential to function. That is where hesitation begins to lose its power. That is where you stop negotiating with doubt and start aligning with truth. And once that agreement takes place, something begins to stabilize inside you. You begin to move differently, not because everything around you has changed, but because you have. You begin to carry yourself with a quiet certainty that does not need constant validation. You begin to make decisions with clarity that once felt out of reach. You begin to understand that you are not defined by your past limitations, but by your present alignment. And that shift cannot be undone once it is fully accepted. But before that identity can fully settle, there is something else that must be exposed, because there is one pattern that has been quietly delaying many chosen ones without them realizing it. It is not obvious, it is not loud, but it is powerful enough to keep you standing at the edge of your calling without fully stepping into it. And once you see it clearly, you will not be able to ignore it anymore. Anointed one. The pattern that has been quietly delaying you is not something external, and that is why it has been so difficult to detect. It has not been the opposition itself, nor the people who misunderstood you, nor even the past you have been trying to outgrow. The pattern has been comparison. Not the obvious kind where you openly measure yourself against others, but the subtle kind that hides inside your expectations, your tone, your hesitation, and even your prayers. You've been measuring your expression against voices you respect, against paths that seem clearer, against outcomes that look more established. And without realizing it, you have been waiting for your identity to resemble something you have already seen before you fully accept it. This is where many chosen ones become delayed at the edge of activation. They sense something powerful within them, but they keep filtering it through someone else's model. They wait for their voice to sound a certain way. They wait for their confidence to feel identical to what they have observed in others. They wait for their journey to follow a familiar pattern so they can feel secure stepping into it. But identity does not unfold through imitation. It unfolds through agreement. And comparison interrupts that agreement by constantly shifting your focus away from what has been uniquely formed within you. You may not even realize how this has been affecting you. It shows up when you second-guess what you felt clearly in a moment of clarity. It shows up when you speak with authority, then immediately soften it because it felt too strong. It shows up when you hold back your insight because you are unsure if it sounds as refined as someone else's. It shows up when you dismiss what God is showing you because it does not match the format you expected. These are not small moments. These are the exact points where identity either strengthens or retreats. Chosen one. You were never meant to replicate another expression of calling. You were never meant to echo someone else's assignment. Even when God uses familiar patterns, he never produces identical vessels. Elijah carried authority in one way. Jeremiah carried it in another. Moses spoke differently than David. The power was from the same source, but the expression was distinct. That distinction was not weakness. It was design. And the moment you try to compress your identity into a familiar shape, you begin to restrict the very flow that was meant to move through you freely. There is something liberating that must settle into you now. Your authority does not come from how closely you resemble someone else. It comes from how fully you agree with what God placed inside you. That agreement unlocks something that imitation never can. It brings clarity where comparison brought confusion. It brings stability where insecurity once lived. It allows your voice to carry weight without forcing it. And it removes the constant internal tension of trying to perform instead of simply standing in what is already true. This is why your breakthrough has felt so close, yet just out of reach. Not because it was being withheld, but because it was waiting for alignment. Breakthrough is not something that arrives when you finally become acceptable to others. It is something that activates when you stop resisting your own design. That is why you've had moments where everything felt like it was about to open, only to find yourself pulling back again. That pullback was not because the moment passed. It was because your agreement wavered. And the moment agreement weakens, momentum slows. There is a shift happening now, and it requires courage, not performance. You must stop editing yourself to fit expectations that were never assigned to you. You must stop waiting for permission that will never arrive in the form you expect. Heaven does not issue identity through public validation. It confirms identity internally first, then expects you to walk in it before others recognize it. That is the order, not the other way around. If you keep waiting for recognition before movement, you will remain in preparation longer than necessary. Think about the prophets who were called. They were not introduced with applause. They were confronted with assignment. Isaiah did not feel qualified when he was called. Jeremiah questioned his own ability. Ezekiel was placed in situations that made no sense to the natural mind, yet none of them were commissioned based on their comfort. They were commissioned based on divine intention, and once that intention was declared, their agreement became the turning point. This is the moment where your agreement must become clear. Not partial, not hesitant, not conditional. Clear. You do not need to understand every detail to step forward. You do not need to feel completely confident to begin moving. What you need is alignment. Alignment with what has already been confirmed in your spirit. Alignment with the weight you've been carrying. Alignment with the awareness that has been growing within you. Once that alignment locks into place, something shifts immediately. The internal conflict begins to quiet. The constant second-guessing begins to fade. The need to measure yourself against others begins to lose its grip. And in its place, a different kind of stability emerges. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, but it is undeniable. It is the quiet certainty of someone who no longer needs to borrow identity from outside sources. And when that happens, your movement changes. You stop hesitating at the edge. You stop shrinking after moments of clarity. You stop filtering what you know is true through layers of doubt. Instead, you begin to move with a grounded authority that does not need to prove itself constantly. And that is when things begin to open in ways that feel different from before. Not forced, not chaotic, but aligned. However, as this alignment begins to take root, there is still one more layer that must be revealed, because identity alone is not the end of this awakening. There is a specific nature to what you carry, a distinct mantle that explains why your life has felt the way it has, why your spirit responds the way it does, and why your path has been shaped with such precision. And once that is fully revealed, you will understand not just who you are, but what you have been positioned to do. Chosen one. Now that your alignment is beginning to stabilize, the question you have carried for so long can finally be answered with clarity, not confusion. The weight, the discernment, the sensitivity, the authority rising in you, it is not random and it is not general. It is specific. What you carry is not just a spiritual gift that comes and goes. It is a mantle. And not just any mantle, but the mantle of the prophet. Not in the shallow sense that the world has reduced it to, but in its true depth, in its responsibility, and in its authority. This is why your life has never felt neutral. This is why you cannot ignore what others overlook. This is why you feel things before they happen and recognize patterns before they become visible. This is why you have struggled to stay silent in moments when truth needed to be spoken, even when speaking cost you comfort. You were not designed to blend into environments that operate on illusion. You were designed to expose, to reveal, and to shift. That is why your presence alone can change the atmosphere of a room before you say a word. Anointed One, understand this carefully. The prophetic mantle is not primarily about predicting events. It is about alignment with heaven to the degree that your awareness becomes a bridge between what is unseen and what is unfolding. It is the ability to recognize what is hidden, to speak into what is forming, and to stand in the gap until what heaven has declared becomes established. This is why your words carry weight, even when they are simple. This is why people either feel drawn to you or unsettled around you without understanding why. Your presence confronts what is unaligned without you needing to force it. There have been moments when you spoke something and later realized that what you said carried more depth than you consciously intended. There have been times when you felt a burden to pray or to intercede for someone or something you could not logically explain. There have been instances where you sensed a shift before it became visible, and others only understood after the fact. These are not coincidences. These are functions of what you carry. You have been operating in pieces of your assignment without fully naming it, and because it was unnamed, it felt inconsistent. But now the pattern is becoming clear. This also explains why your life has felt polarizing. Some people connect with you deeply, almost immediately, as if they recognize something beyond surface interaction. Others distance themselves without clear reason, sometimes even reacting to you in ways that seem disproportionate. That is not about personality. It is about light, truth reveals. And not everyone is comfortable with what is revealed. When you carry a prophetic mantle, your life itself becomes a mirror. It reflects what is aligned and exposes what is not, even when you are not trying to do so. There's also a responsibility that comes with this, and this is where many hesitate. Because once you recognize what you carry, you realize that it is not just about personal understanding, it is about function. It is about obedience. It is about allowing what has been placed in you to move through you. That is where fear often tries to return, not in the form of denial, but in the form of hesitation. You begin to think about the consequences. You think about being misunderstood. You think about the weight of responsibility. You think about the cost of standing in truth when others prefer comfort. These thoughts are real, but they cannot be allowed to redefine your movement. Scripture reveals this clearly. In Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, it speaks of being known, set apart, and appointed before formation was complete. That means the assignment preceded your awareness of it. You were not asked to create this identity. You were formed with it. And that is why you cannot escape it by ignoring it. You can delay it, you can resist it, you can question it, but you cannot remove it. It is woven into your design. There is something else you must understand, because it explains the intensity of your journey. You do not just carry a prophetic awareness, you carry a breakthrough function. That means your role is not only to see what is coming, but to participate in shifting what stands in the way of it. You are positioned to open paths, to disrupt cycles, to stand in places where others hesitate, and to create movement where stagnation has become normal. That is why your life has encountered resistance at specific points. You are not just observing change, you are part of initiating it. This is also why your breakthrough is not isolated to you. What unlocks in your life will not remain contained within your own experience. It will create access for others. It will shift patterns that have existed beyond your personal timeline. It will open doors that others could not find before. That is the nature of what you carry. It is not small, and it was never meant to be small. That is why the preparation has been so detailed, so intense, and at times so difficult to explain. And now you are standing at the point where recognition must turn into acceptance. Not partial acceptance, not hesitant acknowledgement, but full agreement. Because what you do next determines whether this remains a realization or becomes a lived reality. The mantle is not waiting to be given to you. It is waiting for you to stop resisting what has already been placed upon you. And once that resistance is removed, something begins to activate in a way that cannot be reversed. But before that activation fully unfolds, there is one final adjustment that must take place. Because even with clarity and recognition, there is still a subtle habit that can keep you standing at the edge instead of fully stepping into what has already been confirmed. And once that is exposed, everything begins to move with a different kind of precision. Anointed One, even after recognition, even after alignment, even after you have begun to understand what you carry there, remains one final barrier that quietly holds many chosen ones in place longer than necessary. It is not fear in its obvious form, and it is not doubt in the way you used to experience it. It is something more subtle. It is the habit of waiting for permission. Not always consciously, but deeply embedded in the way you move, the way you speak, and the way you respond when moments of authority rise within you. You have been conditioned over time to look for confirmation outside of yourself before you fully act on what has already been confirmed within you. You look for someone to affirm it, to validate it, to recognize it in a way that feels safe and undeniable. And while there's nothing wrong with wise counsel, there is a difference between seeking wisdom and waiting for permission. Because the kind of mantle you carry does not activate through external approval. It activates through internal agreement and movement. You may recognize this pattern if you reflect on certain moments. There were times when you knew exactly what needed to be said, but you held back, waiting for the right environment. There were moments when you felt a clear direction, but you delayed, hoping for a second sign. There were situations where your spirit had already settled the matter, but your mind kept negotiating with uncertainty. That gap between knowing and moving is where delay lives. And the longer that gap remains, the more it trains you to hesitate, even when clarity is present. Chosen one, there is a reason this pattern must be broken now. Because what you carry is not meant to be activated in perfect conditions. It is meant to move through you in real time, in imperfect moments, in situations where clarity must lead before comfort follows. The prophets were not placed in controlled environments. They were placed in tension, in uncertainty, in moments where obedience required immediate agreement rather than prolonged analysis. Think about it in practical terms. If every step required full external validation, nothing significant would ever move forward. There are assignments that only unfold as you step into them. There are doors that do not open until you begin to walk toward them. There are words that only become clear as you speak them. That is the nature of prophetic movement. It is not passive, it is responsive. It requires you to trust what has been placed inside you enough to act on it before everything around you feels settled. This is where your understanding must become sharper. The authority you carry is not waiting to be approved. It has already been entrusted to you. The question is not whether you have it. The question is whether you will use it. And using it does not mean forcing yourself into situations or acting out of impulse. It means responding when you are prompted. It means speaking when you are led. It means stepping when direction becomes clear, even if the path is not fully visible yet. Scripture reveals this pattern repeatedly. In Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, it speaks of a vision that will speak in its appointed time and not lie. But there is also an instruction to wait for it with expectation, that waiting is not passive delay, it is active readiness. It is a posture of alignment, not hesitation. And when the moment arrives, the response must be immediate, not postponed. You have already experienced glimpses of this. There were moments when you acted quickly, when you spoke without overthinking, when you moved without needing full reassurance. And those were the moments when things aligned most clearly. There was a flow, a precision, a sense that something beyond your natural ability was guiding you. Those moments were not accidents, they were previews. They were showing you what happens when you stop waiting for permission and begin moving in agreement. This is also where your confidence must be redefined. Confidence is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the willingness to move despite it. It is the decision to trust what has been confirmed in your spirit more than the questions that arise in your mind. It is the ability to stand in what you know without constantly needing to justify it to yourself or to others. That kind of confidence does not develop all at once. It develops through action, through small steps that reinforce what is already true. And as you begin to move this way, something begins to shift in your environment. Opportunities begin to align differently. Conversations begin to carry more weight. Doors that once seemed closed begin to respond, not because everything around you suddenly changed, but because you did, because you stopped waiting at the edge and began stepping into what was already available. There is also a deeper layer to this. When you move in agreement, you are not just affecting your own path. You are creating pathways for others. The decisions you make, the clarity you walk in, the authority you express, they do not remain isolated. They create access. They open space. They shift patterns that others have been unable to break. That is part of the responsibility of what you carry. And that is why hesitation cannot remain your default response. So hear this clearly. The time of waiting for permission has ended. The clarity you have been seeking is already within reach. The authority you have been questioning is already active, and the movement you have been delaying is now required. Not in a forced way, but in a responsive way, a willing way, a surrendered way. And as this shift takes place, there is one final step that brings everything together. Because once you stop waiting, once you begin moving, once you fully agree with what has been placed inside you, there comes a moment where everything that has been forming internally must be spoken, declared, and anchored in a way that solidifies your position moving forward. That moment is not just symbolic, it is activating, and it is closer than you realize. Chosen one, this is the moment where everything you have heard, everything you have felt, and everything that has been forming inside you must come into agreement through your own voice. Because there comes a point where revelation is no longer enough on its own. It must be received, spoken, and anchored, not for performance, not for others to hear, but for your own spirit, to fully align with what heaven has already confirmed. There is power in agreement, and agreement is not silent. Agreement is expressed, it is declared, it is spoken with intention. That is why throughout Scripture, transformation is often marked by declaration. Not because God needs to be convinced, but because you need to come into alignment with what has already been established. You have listened, you have recognized, you have begun to understand. Now you must respond. So take a moment wherever you are and do not rush past this. This is not a routine step. This is an activation. Place your attention inward and let your words carry intention, not hesitation. Speak this over yourself, not as a wish, but as an agreement. I receive what has already been placed within me. I stop questioning what heaven has confirmed. I step into the authority that has been forming in my life. I release the need for permission, for validation, for approval that was never required. I accept the mantle I carry, and I walk in alignment with it. I trust the voice within me that has been shaped by truth. I move forward with clarity, not confusion. I stand in what I am not what I used to be. I accept that my life carries purpose beyond what I have seen so far. I walk forward in agreement with it now. Let those words settle. Do not treat them lightly. Something shifts when you stop resisting and begin agreeing. Something stabilizes when your internal voice matches what heaven has been revealing. The hesitation that once held you begins to lose its strength. The constant questioning begins to quiet, and in its place, a different kind of awareness rises. It is steady, it is grounded, it does not need to prove itself constantly, it simply stands. Anointed one, from this point forward you will notice changes. Not all at once, not in a way that feels chaotic, but in a way that is precise. Your decisions will feel clearer, your responses will carry more weight. The moments where you once hesitated will begin to shorten. The inner conflict that once slowed you down will begin to resolve faster. This is what happens when identity and agreement meet. Movement becomes natural. There will still be moments of challenge. There will still be situations that test what you now understand. But those moments will not feel the same as before, because now you are not approaching them from uncertainty. You are approaching them from recognition, and that changes everything. You are no longer trying to figure out who you are while facing resistance. You are facing resistance with a clearer understanding of who you are, and as you continue to move forward, remember this. What has been activated in you is not meant to remain hidden. It is meant to function. It is meant to influence. It is meant to create movement beyond your own life. You are not stepping into something small. You are stepping into something that carries impact, whether seen immediately or not. And that impact will unfold as you continue to walk in agreement. So do not return to shrinking. Do not return to silence when clarity is present. Do not return to waiting when direction is already clear. You have crossed the threshold. You have recognized what you carry. You have aligned with it. Now you must continue walking in it. And from this moment forward, every step you take in agreement will continue to reveal just how much has already been placed inside you. Chosen one. This moment is not an ending, it is a sealing. What has been revealed to you is already taking root, and what has been stirred within you will not return to silence. You are standing in a kairos moment, a divinely appointed time where heaven is not just speaking, but aligning, shifting, and positioning things on your behalf. Anointed one, even now unseen doors are adjusting, paths are clearing, and connections are being rearranged in ways you cannot yet fully see. This is not something you have to force. It is something you must remain aligned with. Stay grounded, stay attentive, stay in quiet agreement with what has been placed inside you. May peace settle over your spirit. May clarity continue to rise within you, and may every step you take from this moment forward be guided with precision, not confusion. What you carry is real. What has been activated is irreversible, and what is coming will meet you in perfect timing. If your spirit bears witness to this, write Amen or 777 in the comments as your sign of agreement, not for others, but as a confirmation within yourself that you receive it. And if you feel this message was meant for your journey, stay connected so you do not miss what is being released next. Chosen one, walk forward now. It has already begun.